So, I was recently asked some questions about my South Bend vertical milling machine. It's, the answers are a little bit longer than I care to type in text, so I decided to make this video about well, first of all, answer the questions and also just explain some more stuff about the machine because they are very uncommon, or at least I haven't been able to find much information about them. So I thought I would share what I do have so that anybody else that comes across it or has one will hopefully benefit from this video. So without further ado, let me answer the first question that I was asked, which is about the crank for the knee. I was asked if I had the original crank, and I do not, but I do have a piece that allows me to crank the knee, and this is it right here. I'm not sure if this is original from South Bend or not, but it's what I use and it works for me. I haven't gotten around to making a official crank, although that is part of my plan. Here it is. It's just a simple piece. I'm not able to tell if this was amateur, if this was machined by, somebody that owned the machine previous to me or what, but it works. So this is all I have. That was the first question. It works pretty well, I guess. So anybody else watching this video that does not have one of these machines might be wondering, what's the big deal? Why? Who cares? Why even talk about this machine? Well, what makes it different, what separates it from most other vertical milling machines is two things. One is the fact that it doesn't have an automatic feed for the quill. It only is fed manually by either this crank or the handle. Now that's not a very big deal realistically for most operations, but what does set this machine separate from a Bridgeport or something else is the spindle taper. It does not use an R8 collet, which is can lead to problems with trying to find attachments and things of that nature. So that was what the second question I was asked references. So let me move into the bench and I'll show you what I have and hopefully better answer the questions that were asked of me. Okay, so as I said before, the South Bend milling machine does not use an R8 collet. It doesn't have an R8 taper in the spindle. What it does have is what's called a 30 mm taper. Now, I don't think that the mm stands for millimeters, but I have an example of it here of what it is. It's basically a 30 taper, a standard 30 taper, but what it has is it uses two set screws that screw in from the bottom to hold it into the taper. Now this is a collet chuck for it. This is one that I do have. This is the type of collets that it uses. Now these are the type of collets that came with it from South Bend, I do believe anyways. The type of collet it is a Z collet. Okay? Not that common. Not something that you can just find in the Enco catalog or MSC. I guess Enco's out of business now. Which leads to the second question, which was, do I have any extra collets that I could spare? And the answer is no, unfortunately. I do have almost a full set of these Z collets, but I do not have any extras. And they are a little difficult to come by. So let me get back to those collets in a second. So the good news about this taper is, this is another example of the 33 taper, just to go back. This is actually a South Bend piece. It came in this box. You can see it's South Bend original equipment. So that just converts the taper to a number 2 Morse taper, which is what I use for this drill chuck, because I don't have one yet. So, first let's talk about the taper and what we can do to find things that work. I was able to figure out that what does work is your standard 30 taper for what would normally be used, I guess, in a horizontal milling machine. The taper here is the same. The main difference is the 30 mm taper does not have this top threaded portion. In fact, it doesn't have threads at all in the top. They're not needed. The reason for this was mainly because the motor for the South Bend milling machine was directly above the spindle, so you couldn't have a through drawbar the same way you do on a Bridgeport. I guess it is what it is. So what I was able to do was, because obviously to make this work, the biggest challenge is figuring out a way on all these irregular surfaces to machine a recess in here accurately to be able to allow the set screws to hold the taper in place. And to do that, I devised a jig. Not like it was a big, divisiveness or however the hell it's said, but just a simple piece of block aluminum. Bored out to the taper. I don't remember what the taper angles are off the top of my head. I made this probably about 2 or 3 years ago. And all it does is allow you to hold the piece at an angle and come in right here with an end mill and mill the pocket into the the 30 taper so that it can be used in the South Bend milling machine. It's pretty simple, but that's what I use to overcome the problems that I have about finding the taper. This is another example of a 30 taper that I cut. This is just a 1/2 inch end mill holder. When I originally got this, it did not have this pocket in it. I milled this in. These so far, all these that I found are not that hard. Not hard enough where I can't mill it with a solid carbide end mill. So, it's really not an issue to be able to do this. Making this jig was really helpful in that. It definitely, took me probably a couple hours to make. Wasn't that bad. Oh, let me show this. I'm sorry. The way that the work is held into this jig is because the 30 taper does have threads in the back. I'm able to just use a simple bolt to draw it in. I hope you can see that. I'm working one-handed here, using my cell phone to film this. But yeah, so there you go. So, alright, anyways, to get back to the question of if I have any extra collets, excuse me, I do not. But what you can do is, what I actually considered doing was, in order to be able to easily get different collets, was to purchase a collet holder in the ER series, either ER32 or ER16, whichever one. These Z collets go up to 3/4, so I'm not sure which ER collets go up that high, but that can be done. And then, obviously mill the pockets in it. A 30 taper to ER collet adapter. But that can be a little expensive. So, what I was able to procure was information, and that was information from the previous owner. Now, he was able to give me some paperwork here. I have the original pamphlet that comes with the machine, which was pretty nice to have. And if we refer to the first page, we can see here that, where the hell am I? that the spindle has a number 30 mm taper. Takes collets up to 3/4. Now, I'm not sure what that mm really means. I don't think it means millimeters, but it could mean anything. Who the hell knows? But anyways, the previous owner was able to find, and I do have the pamphlet or whatever you want to call this thing, he was able to use this company to find these Z collets. I'm not sure, I guess Galaxy Products is what it's called. I've never used them. I don't know anything about them. But he was able to find replacement collets. I'll just give this a second. You can pause this if you want to contact this company. You can pause the video. Yeah. So that's the other option. If you don't have any collets for this machine, you can try and use this company. I don't know if they're even still in business. Like I said, I never used them. But, you know, you can try. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. You know, that's all I got for you. Okay, one last thing. I thought it might be a little unclear the way I explained how these tapers go into the spindle. Well, first let me show you this. See how the motor's on top of this, directly above the spindle? That's the reason why a drawbar and R8 collet wouldn't work on this machine. And I guess it's the reason why they went with this style taper, which I don't know if any other type of machine uses this. But I thought I might clarify exactly what I meant and show you how it goes in. Let me just figure out how the hell I can hold this phone up. Alright, so yeah, it gets inserted like this, right? I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. Well, you know what? I don't think I'm going to be able to actually install it, but I can show you at least what I mean. Now, if you look, where's the lighting? I think you can see that. Yep, if you look and you see there's a set screw there, and then there's a set screw on the other side. That's a little bit better lighting. I'll focus. There it is. So that's what's used to hold this piece into the spindle. Those two set screws thread in at an angle, thread right into that pocket and hold it up. So that's about it, you know. So that's all I got for you. I hope that helps in any way. If anybody else has any questions about this, I have any questions about anything, I guess, with it. I can't guarantee you I'll have the answer, but you know, leave a comment in the comment section below and I'll try and get back to you and answer the best I can. Thanks a lot.